reached for the curtains and they were a little bit further away than anticipated, and as I've reached, I've slipped off the bed and landed on my feet, but I broke my tibia bone in 4 places.
Wow.
And smashed the bottom of my kneecap to pieces.
Hey, I'm Ange.
And I'm Beck.
And we are the Gold Diggers, because we believe there's gold found in everyone.
Everyone is unique, interesting and exciting with a great story to share.
And we aim to find it.
The question is, can we rise to the challenge and strike gold?
I need your my sugar.
Can you imagine a moment that you're at home and you're just hanging some curtains and you fall off a bed and you break your leg? This resulted in an amputation for this week's guest called Paula Gowland. And her story is so inspiring that you need to check this out.
Yeah, Paula's story is so inspiring, and she actually spent over 2 years in hospital with these things, and yet there's so much more that we haven't even told you about. So keep listening.
I need your my sugar.
So this is how it works. One of us knows who the mystery guest is and the other one doesn't. And today, Angela is going to interview our guest, Paula Gowland. So, Ange, we've got 3 points for you.
Yeah.
You're going
I'm
to...
ready.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Paula is a devoted mother.
Beautiful.
Yes.
That's nice.
Yes.
Like, we're both devoted mothers too.
We are. We instantly have something in common with her.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, Paula is also an amputee after falling off a bed while she was hanging curtains.
Wow.
So that's an interesting story. Yeah. So we'll delve into that one as well. And she is also now a small business owner.
Yeah.
And she is a trauma life coach.
Yeah.
So we can talk to her about that as well.
Yeah, great. Okay, so devoted mum,
Yes.
amputee, business owner. That was it, wasn't it?
That's
and
the
a
one.
life and trauma coach.
So I think it might be time
Lots
to
to
get
chat
Paula
about.
in. Yes.
Yep. Well, welcome, Paula. So good to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being in the studio with us.
No, it's my pleasure.
So there's lots to talk about here. And obviously the big one that I want to go to is hanging curtains and how something like that can change your life. But I'm going to park that one for a little while and let's look at some of the other things. So devoted mum. How many kids do you have?
Yes, 3 children, 2 girls and a boy.
Yeah.
Ranging from eldest is 28, 23, and Ethan is 17.
Oh,
Okay.
beautiful.
And any still living at home? Or?
One still living at home. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ethan.
And so is that something you've done, like you've just been at home raising your kids?
No, I have for the last 10 years, we've been running 2 businesses here on the coast.
Wow, okay. So when you say we, is that you and your partner?
Yes, me and my husband, John.
Yeah, okay. What are your businesses?
We have 2. We have Sunshine Coast Art and Framing Gallery in Minyama.
Ah,
And we also have Sunquest Signs in Warana.
okay. Is that the one? There's one like an art gallery that's
Next
on
door
the
to Pillow Talk.
Pillow Talk.
Oh, yeah,
That's
the one.
you.
Yes,
Oh, I use you for all my framing.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome.
Now you got the face to the framing.
Yeah, wonderful. So what got you into that business?
Once I recovered from losing a leg, because I had been in hospital for around about 756 days.
Oh, my goodness.
John and I
Wow.
decided that we were going to do something together, and I could no longer work in the previous business that we own, which was a cleaning business, and we said we were going to do something together, and we found Sunshine Coast Art and Framing Gallery was for sale at the time, and we thought it was a great idea to go in and do that together.
So no history in art at all?
Nothing.
No.
How long have you been doing that for?
We've owned that business now for 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, yes.
So 700 and how many days was it?
756 days.
Wow.
Were you having like one of these, you know how in prisons they put
That's
the
what I
little
kind of
lines?
felt like.
Oh, my goodness.
Like you were in hospital that entire time,
over
no
2
graps?
years.
Yeah, over 2 years. But I got to come home for, it might have been a month here and a month there, but the majority of it was in hospital straight.
Yeah.
Different hospitals, but it was kind of always living out of a hospital bed.
So let's talk through that moment then. I've just got a picture of you at home, just hanging curtains, doing something that perhaps all of us would do, a general household chore, and suddenly your life changes.
Yeah.
What were the circumstances around that?
So it was our first day off in a very long time. We were very much into outrigging at the time, and we were away most weekends. This was our first weekend at home in a long time. And I thought it was a great idea to wash the curtains and hang them back up on the curtain rods to dry. So I stood on my bed, reached for the curtains, and they were a little bit further away than anticipated. And as I've reached, I've slipped off the bed and landed on my feet, but I broke my tibia bone in 4 places.
Wow.
And smashed the bottom of my kneecap to pieces.
Goodness.
And were you on your own when this?
No, everybody was home at the time. This was 2014, and we were all ready all I had to do was hang the curtains, and we were going to watch The Hobbit.
Oh.
Yeah.
So, so after this, we called an ambulance. I knew I'd broken my leg, and I couldn't. John, my husband, said, "It's okay. It's just a dislocation. You'll be fine." But as soon as he went to move me, I was just in agony.
Oh.
So by the time the ambulance got there, I finally arrived at hospital, but my leg was too swollen to operate. So they did what was called external fixations, and they performed that operation. But unfortunately for me, something went wrong, and I had what was called compartment syndrome. So that's where all our muscles are kind of like have a sausage skin around them, and what they needed to do was just slice my leg open to let my muscles breathe. And you only have 12 hours to fix compartment syndrome, and unfortunately for me, they didn't pick it up for 24 days.
Oh, no.
So by the time they went in to fix what was just a broken leg, my leg was dead and still dying.
Oh,
Oh,
my
my
goodness.
So, were you kind of screaming out, knowing there was something was wrong, that this didn't feel right?
Look, I was in excruciating pain the whole entire time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, things just got missed along the way. And I had 7 operations to try and save my leg.
Yeah.
But in the end, I sought a second opinion from an orthopaedic surgeon in Sydney. And he actually flew to Brisbane, Professor Munjadal Medeiros, flew to Brisbane, took a look at my leg in the airport and put me on the next plane and amputated that night.
Wow.
Wow.
Did you have some anger issues with this? Like, if only they'd caught it earlier?
Look, the way I see it is potentially this, happened for a reason. I was fortunate enough to put steps into place with, people that were managing my treatment so that it doesn't happen to other people again. And look, I just look at it as it's not something I can change, and I've really had to just be okay with it and move on.
Wow.
So talk us through the moment then. Obviously, things are going wrong. It's a broken leg. These issues are not meant to be arising. You get to the moment where suddenly you're going to lose your leg. How were you feeling at that moment? What were you processing? What were you thinking about your future?
Oh, look, for me at that particular time, I thought my life was over. How was I ever going to be a mum? How was I ever going to work? I wasn't going to be able to, I was going to be in a wheelchair. I'm not even comprehending at that stage that prosthetic legs even exist. It was just like, how do you do life without a leg?
And your kids would have been a lot younger then?
Yeah, my youngest was 7 at the time, and middle daughter was around about 12, 13, and Jessica was just turning 17.
Wow.
So
You were in busy mum life.
yeah, it really was full on busy mum life, and we had, you know, I also worked for a company in Brisbane at the time that was actually training the long-term unemployed and people with disabilities. So it was a very busy time. We had our own business, and I was working, and we had 3 children that were very much into outrigging. So we were at sport all the time, and Ethan was playing football, and everything just came crashing down.
So you had a 2-year period where you were in and out of hospital. The pressure that would have put on your husband, your family, what was that like for them?
It was terrible. We ended up losing our business eventually. We lost our house. Our kids, you know, their mum was basically ripped out of the family unit, because not only was I having to deal with a broken leg or no leg, I was in a Sydney hospital. So most of the time the kids weren't even able to come and visit me. They only spent their holidays, you know, school holidays in my hospital room, and which was no fun for anybody. And yeah, things got really, John was very, very under pressure with trying to be mum and dad. And, you know, my poor husband had never cooked a meal in our whole entire married life. So he was now having to learn to be mum and cook, and, you know.
Did you have family around to help with any of that?
We have my mum and John's mum were both here on the coast. So, but it got to the point where even people didn't know how to help. How do you help? You know, at first, you know, I was just in hospital and it was a broken leg, and then all of a sudden I shipped off to Sydney and leg amputated, and everybody was still here. So it wasn't like I was even here for them to know what was going on. So it was very, very difficult time.
And you would have felt disconnected from them and been taken on
absolutely
this scary
very
journey,
disconnected
really,
from the
wasn't it?
family.
Yeah.
And, you know, things were happening. I had all the support. I had psychologists, I had physios, I had doctors, I had nurses. I had a lot of support in the hospital.
Yeah.
But back here on the coast, you know, my daughter was 12, 13 at the time, very influential age, spiralling out of control. And, you know, in the long journey, my husband actually took to alcohol as his new wife instead of me being there. So there were lots of things that were unravelling on the coast here that I actually didn't realise until I came home.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, the pressure is really immense.
Yeah.
Obviously, without you being present and then having to support you in a different location. But then, obviously, you have your leg amputated. There's a major adjustment then. So what was that like? Talk us through the process of relearning even how to walk.
Well, first of all, I was actually a below amputee. So originally they cut my leg off below the knee, and so I learnt to walk with a prosthetic but still had a knee. But one of the complications and one of the things that kept me in hospital was that I still had a slight infection left in the bone. So after about 12 months of not being able to shake the infection, we decided to go above the knee. So I kind of lost my leg twice.
Wow.
So there was a second operation that gave me an above the knee. And look, to learn to walk as a below knee amputee was actually quite easy once you still have that knee. It was really just knowing where your foot placement was, and it was actually quite easy. But as an above knee amputee, oh my God, that is a whole new ball game. There were times in hospital where I thought that I was never going to get this thing called walking. You had to concentrate so much on where that foot was being placed and what you had to do to actually walk. And I was 41 years of age at the time of losing a leg, and it was like, I don't think I'm ever going to get to walk again properly. And, you know, I'm in walking frames and trying to get the hang of it and falling over, and it was terrible.
What makes you keep trying, though? I mean, surely there must have been moments where you think, I'm just never going to get this. I'm done.
Yeah, there
Right.
was. And I think the biggest moment I had for when I was really done is we actually got home, and I thought my whole life was ready to start all over again. And I went to the toilet and I tripped over. My prosthetic leg malfunctioned and I broke my other leg.
Oh, no way.
So at that particular point in time, that was, I am done. I am done. I was just, I remember sitting there that day in a wheelchair, because then I had no choice to be in a wheelchair. And I hated being in a wheelchair, and there was just no choice. I had a prosthetic leg and a leg in a cast, and at the particular time, we had a house that the kitchen and everything was upstairs. So yes,
With
there
no
was there was a very big moment where I was just sat in my room, and I just. It was just, I can't really take.
It'd be mental
take much
anguish.
more.
Yeah.
Absolute
It was-
mental anguish.
But the thing that kept me going was I had said to my kids my whole entire life, you can be and do anything you want to be.
Yeah.
And now I had to live into that.
Wow.
And, you know, I really had to find everything to be able to show up for my kids.
Yeah.
And I had to be there for, it was almost like that fierce mama thing where I had a husband and 3 kids that needed me more than anything now.
Wow.
And I had to get them all fixed and sorted and helped back to our happy normal life.
Yeah.
And there was so much work to be done.
Yeah, wow. I
Yeah.
get that drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you would do anything for your kids.
Absolutely.
And I guess having them young probably wasn't easy for you because you were active, but it probably gave you that motivation that you needed to go through to the recovery. So what was recovery like? Like, what did you have to do on a daily basis?
Rehab 2 times a day to really strengthen the muscles. I mean, after sitting in hospital bed for nearly 2 years, everything just wasn't working very well. So it was physio, you know, for 2 hours, 2 times a day. Plus, in between those times, it was just walking the corridors, getting used to walking with the legs and the different way the prosthetics work and stuff like that. It was all rehab, and then at, you know, it was also mental fitness on having to keep yourself in a good mindset to be able to keep going. But, you know, even for me at first, it was really minute by minute that I had to find something to keep going. And then, it, you know, I would give myself a little goal to, okay, today I'm just going to get up and get dressed. That was my very, very first
Where your
goal.
world had been flipped upside down from hanging curtains
Yes.
to the complete disaster that
Laying
happened.
in the fetal position going,
Far
what
out.
has just happened? But yeah, and then it was, you know, I'd set a goal to just get up and get dressed and walk to the end of the corridor, you know, and then it was, you know, talk to the nurse because, you know, probably for the first month, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want anyone to see me. It was really life-changing type thing. But it was those little goals that I set to, and,
I guess you probably didn't want to believe it had happened in
It
that
was-
first month. Like,
Yeah.
maybe if I just pretend hasn't happened, it'll just pass.
yeah. And if I
Yeah.
opened the sheets, maybe one day my leg would have grown back.
Oh, yeah.
Which I still think that sometimes.
How much did regret play a part in this? Like, oh, I regret. Because I think when we do things that have resulted in a, you know, bad outcome, we can live with that regret, can't we? That, oh, I wish I just hadn't hung those curtains, or
Yeah,
I wish I'd
yeah.
decided to do. How did you
Something
kind of
different.
navigate that?
I think just learning to to say it is what it is. Really, there's no way I could it in everything that happened and all the information that we saw. There was never a point in time where this was ever going to end well. So it's more. It was really finding that strength within me to say, okay, we're just going to get on with life, and it may look different, but I can learn to adapt and I can learn to do things differently. It just might take a little bit longer, or I'll tackle it a different way, but I've finally got to the point where I can still, we still run 2 big businesses, and I still and look after children and now grandchildren, and nothing much really stops me. But it's that having that, I guess, that knowledge, that thought process to not look back, just to always look forward.
I guess having overcome something so massive like that, you probably feel like you can do anything now.
Oh, no, there are still days when I go, I wish I had a leg because I'd be able to do that better. But, what
are some of the things that you can't do as a result of this?
Well, I think one of the things that I see the most is, in that time where, we thought somebody was breaking into the house, and I don't sleep with my leg on. But in that very big moment, you go running to see what's going on, and I've leaped out of bed and not realised I don't have a leg.
Oh,
and that ends in me falling on the floor. So it's those moments, and being able to run. Like if you have to run to do something, I think the biggest challenge I had was when my daughter was in labour, and I had the baby on the doorstep.
Wow.
Literally.
Wow.
And Bubby came out not breathing, and I actually had to bend down on the phone to the ambulance talking to how to do mouth-to-mouth for my grandson. And I wasn't able to bend like a normal person could bend on and get down on the floor. So that was just little things like that I find that in
Your
those
grandson's
moments.
okay, I'm assuming.
Yes, he is.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yes, wasn't my finest
I
moment.
could see
but
Beck
I did.
was kind of like clinging on for the answer.
Yes, he was fine. I wasn't the one to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. I dragged her mother-in-law in to do that.
Yeah.
But, that was quite a scary moment, because it's those kinds of things where you just think that you can do it and you can't.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that, your leg isn't the only thing that you lost. You mentioned that you lost your business, your family was very, very challenged. But now, obviously, you're running 2 businesses, and there must have been a shift in you to go from, my life has been really challenged and we've lost so much, to wanting to get on that dream again to start a business. So how did you transition?
Yeah, so when I came back home, we tried to salvage what was then our cleaning business. So we had a commercial cleaning business and a carpet cleaning business, and I was predominantly the one that ran the commercial side of the business, and being now an amputee, I couldn't work in that business. So we actually sold that half of the business, and we decided to build up the carpet cleaning business. So I went in, once I got home, I was working with John to build that business back up, and we eventually sold that, and that enabled us to buy Sunshine Coast Art and Framing Gallery.
But like a carpet cleaning business, there's obviously physical activity involved in that. Like, what made you think that was a good choice for you when there were physical limitations?
Well, that was really John was doing the carpet cleaning at that point, and I was just the office girl.
Right.
But because we'd had that business for 10 years previous, so we decided once I got home that we wanted to do something together. Yeah. And that was when we decided to sell that up enough to be able to sell that one and buy something better.
Because I just love this go-get attitude that you have. That it's
Well,
just like, nothing is going to stop me. No physical limitation is going to stop me. If I'm cleaning carpets with one leg, I'm cleaning carpets with one leg. I mean, that's really incredible to get that mind shift to think that I can do this.
Well, I kind of knew I wasn't going to be able to do carpets, that's for sure. So we knew we had to build it up to be able to sell it. And we purchased Sunshine Coast Art and it was called Caloundra Art and Framing back then, and it only had 4.5 staff. But within 3 years, we turned that business around, and we now have 25 staff in that business.
That's
So
amazing.
the building that business became my focus. It was where I went to not think about the world and be back to the Paula that I was before.
Yeah.
And I put every heart and soul I had left into that business and turned it into what it is today.
Amazing.
It's what you said. You feel like you're a better person now, a stronger person than pre-accident.
Yeah.
Amazing. So
Yeah.
there's no stopping you, is there? You're just going to keep going.
No, there's definitely no stopping me. I've, in this whole process, through different things that have happened, I've actually nearly died 3 times. So I say to my husband all the time, you ain't getting rid of me anytime soon.
Obviously, you bounce. You break, but you bounce.
That's right.
You're still meant to be here.
Yes.
So I've heard stories from amputees that, when they've had their leg removed, they still have this sensation that their leg is there, or phantom leg pains. Does that happen for you?
That is a real thing. There's 2 things actually. There's phantom limb sensation and there's also phantom limb pain. So the limb sensation is kind of like when you can feel your leg but it's not there. It's not painful but you can still feel it. Whereas the actual pain is like I want to grab my leg and take it or just move it and put it in a bucket of water to stop it from burning.
Wow.
It is definitely
And is this is this
thing.
ongoing, or is it just for a period of time that happens?
For me, I've realised now that the minute I get stressed or if I'm getting sick, that's when my phantom limb pain will be even worse. It'll come, and that's usually now the first sign that I'll go, oh, I've got to stop and slow down, or I'm getting sick, or that's. As soon as I get that pain, that's kind of my tell sign that something's not right. But it's definitely nerve related, and obviously the nerves kick in most of the time when something is wrong.
And is there medication to help with that?
There is medication that can help it, but once it goes into full-blown pain, even the medication doesn't stop it.
Yeah.
And there'll be nights where I would lie awake rocking because there is nothing you can do
my goodness.
to actually get rid of that pain, and it all of a sudden it'll just go, and you just think, why?
It's the strangest thing, isn't it? Because it's like you're getting pain from something that doesn't
It's not there.
exist.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's so painful that it's debilitating pain that you just don't know what to do with.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
How do you cope with that mentally? Have you
Meditation
learned to,
is one of the things that I use to, and you can't do meditation of just sitting there and zoning out. It's got to be like a guided meditation that's actually talking so that your brain's got something to listen to, is what I've found. But I also find I use a mirror that sometimes I can trick the brain to think that it's the other leg, and mirror therapy does help to relieve it as well.
That's really interesting.
Well, the brain's a remarkable thing, isn't it? Just like
and because the mirror, because when I'm looking, it thinks that I'm seeing my leg, but it's the mirror version of my leg, and it's very, very interesting how that can help.
that works. Yeah.
So intricate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just don't hang any curtains.
No.
Avoid losing a leg if you can.
Oh, yeah. My dad lost his finger and he would often say it felt itchy and he couldn't scratch it. Yeah.
That's a real thing that happens all the time.
Oh,
yeah.
that would
Or
be
you'll
awful.
see me scratching this metal piece here and it's like,
Oh.
it's why people must think, why are you scratching your leg when it's metal?
You can still feel it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Well, then I guess the biggest thing here for you emotionally is the injustice of what's happened, that if things were handled differently, the outcome would have been different. Did you take any particular action with that, or did you have to go through therapy? What was the process for you to deal with that?
Look, right from the word go, there was a point when after I had the amputation, I had to decide within myself there and then, was I just going to move on, or were we going to go down that path of trying to find out who was at fault? And I think it was in that moment that I decided that this is how it is, and I am going to just move on, and we just moved on and just let it all go.
That actually is incredible to do that, because we're always looking for justice. We're always looking for who's to blame in things.
But
and
I
when
think-
you've lost something so significant that's really impacted your life and your family for a long period of time, to make that decision to move on, what were the deciding things for you? Was it a personal thing that we were in a better position if we just move on from this?
I think I personally was in a better position to just deal with what I had to deal with and learn to do things differently.
Yeah.
But the reality for me was I couldn't change it. I can't, it's not going to grow back. It can't be sewn back on, and I couldn't change the outcome.
Yeah.
So it was really having that mental focus that I can't change the outcome. So let's just make the best of what we have. And for me, that was getting strong enough
Amazing.
and finding the strength to be able to do all the things I needed to do to get home to be with my kids and my husband.
Yeah.
And what was some of the things you discovered about yourself in that period of time?
Oh, some of the things I discovered. When I look back now, sometimes I think I'm a much better person now than I ever was when I had two legs, because it really gave me, I was a person that kind of was so busy that I never stopped to smell the roses. And this kind of put me in a situation where it is so important to live in the now. And I think that was one of the things that I really discovered about myself, that I never actually lived in the now. I was always so focused on the future and so focused on what had happened, but I was never actually present for the kids. I was never actually present for, going out and spending time with others. And that's one of the things that I did learn about myself. I also wondered where I got the strength from sometimes myself, and I had to do a lot of thinking around that. And I grew up in a family, a very loving family with a sister, but my mother was an alcoholic. So I learnt from a very young age that when you wanted to do something, you had to do it yourself. So I think in hindsight, being in a family, and look, there was I had an amazing family. I just thought the way I grew up was the way everybody grew up. It wasn't until I was, teenager that I realised that maybe that's not how all families grew up. But there was still lots of love, and my mother actually went to AAs when I was about 10. So I think growing up and having to do things for myself actually gave me some of the resilience that I've used now.
Yeah.
And it's
Because things like this can either make you or break you. Can't they?
absolutely.
Yeah,
And I
personally.
say all the time, if this had have happened to my husband and not me, things could have been very different. Because I think I've always been able to just get on with things regardless of what the situation has been from a very young age. So I think
And
that
you
had
said
a lot
like
to
he
do
handled
with
it very differently, didn't he? He used to do turn to
Yeah.
alcohol. Did he work through that?
Yes, he did. Eventually, once I came home, I came home to a completely different family. when we first purchased the framing business, we thought, everything was all back to normal and I was home and we'd got our new business. But we actually got a call from the hospital to say that my middle daughter had attempted suicide. Mm. And so we were dealing with that for the next 18 months. And then the pressure of John then feeling that he was responsible for that because he wasn't, he felt responsible for not looking after things while I was gone, sent him into depression. And so then there was that we then had to deal with. And John hasn't had a drink now for 4 years.
That's great.
And he's lost, nearly 40 kilos.
Wow.
And has completely changed his life as
Sounds
well.
like there was a whole lot of grief that you had to deal with as well, coming back and having to reinvent your family. Really.
Yeah. It was very strange to come back to a family that I actually didn't know anymore. Wow. Everybody in that 2 years, everybody had changed. And it was almost like for the first couple of months I was coming back into people I had no idea who they were. Wow. They didn't come to me for anything because they went to their dad because their dad had been there for the whole entire time. And I kind of felt like I didn't fit in.
Wow.
But, look, now today we are very, very close and we're all still alive and we're
That's good.
Things move on, don't they? And, I know you're running 2 businesses, but you're also a therapist. So did that journey start because of this event for you?
Yeah, I think we are really fortunate enough that our businesses are running really well here on the coast, and that's enabled me to step out of the businesses a little bit and be able to now give back to others. My goal, when my book launched 2 weeks ago, we also launched me as a coach to be able to help others that are going through, traumas of, any kind of trauma or anyone that wants to where they are now and they want to move to a different place is where I'd like to help people and just give them the strategies to take another step forward.
Amazing.
So is it like life coaching? How does coaching look for you? Is it a one-on-one?
Yeah, I'm starting with one-on-ones. I really love to work with one-on-ones, but we are also looking at doing some retreats and things where I can take people away and get them out of their normal zones, and so they can really think about what they want their life to look like and how they can make changes to have that. Because if you'd have said to me, 6 years ago that I would own 2 businesses after just losing a business and our house. If you'd have said that I would have owned 2 businesses and starting a coaching business, I would have said you are crazy. But, anything is possible if you put your mind to it.
What are some key points that you would give to people on trying to rehabilitate after something like that?
Oh, look, I think it's just setting small goals and just putting one foot in front of the other. If you set one thing to do each day or each week, if you do a combination of one thing every day, then you're achieving your goals without even realising it, and before you know it, you're there. But it's really just having that mental focus on just getting your mindset right to be able to put the goals into place to achieve what you want to do.
So if we look back at 30-year-old Paula, pre-accident, what advice would you give to her for the future that's unknown, that's ahead?
First of all, cleaning is a health hazard.
Don't hang the curtains.
Stand on your bed and hang curtains.
Leave those curtains alone.
Yeah. But I think really understanding what it is that you want as a person, and then looking at what you want as either a couple or a family, but really looking after yourself. I don't think I could have got through this if I hadn't have realised that the only way I was going to get home is if I looked after me. Even though my first thought was I have to get home to be with everybody else, the real bottom line was I had to get me right. I had to get me strong. I had to get me mentally strong, physically strong, and I had to get everything going on here right before I could go and help anybody else.
It's a bit like in an aeroplane when they say if you crash, put your own mask on first.
Absolutely.
And then you can help those
and
around you.
that's so true. Yeah, I really couldn't help anybody until I actually helped myself to move through the grief of losing a leg and move through what had just happened and being able to normalise everything that now was for me.
And has there been an impact on your kids? Is there that sense that, bad things can happen just for doing simple things? Do they live with that, or how have you prepared them to kind of embrace the future?
No, I don't think they still do crazy things that, any other normal kids would do. And I think they definitely haven't been wrapped in cotton wool after all of this. They probably have to be dying before I'll actually realise that something's wrong with them now.
Especially 17-year-old boys.
Yes,
My 17-year-old when he was 17, hopped in a trolley and jumped out of it while it was moving, broke his wrist. So, you can't hold them down.
You can't hold them down. And I really do, and I think because they see me not putting limits on myself, they know that they don't need to put limits on them either.
Yeah.
And that's what I've just tried to show them in everything that I do, that there are no limits.
Yeah.
Well, you're amazing, Paula, and I think it might be time to go to some gold.
I love that, what you say about no limits. I think when we go through some of the difficult times in our life, we discover things about ourselves that we never knew existed, that we're stronger than we think we are, that we're more resilient than we think we are, and there's more in us. But it's that sense of, who am I doing this for? And you had that goal in mind that I have to be there for my kids. No matter what I have to go through, that is my goal and I'm going to achieve it. And that's such drive and determination to go through the most challenging of things. I don't know, because I'm on this side of a journey like that, I don't know whether I personally would have that strength and resilience that you've had to get through that journey. But that's the point, isn't it? We don't know until we're there. And so what I love is the fact you are using that experience now to bring that and draw that out of other people, to actually give them the courage that you can face hard things and you can get through the other side, and life can be better on the other end of these trials and challenges. And so there's so much gold in using your experience and drawing that out and helping other people to be running 2 businesses, still raising a family, still active, and helping other people. I think you've really made the most out of this event in your life, this tragedy, and you've turned it around into a triumph. So
it's so good. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing this amazing story with us. I think I'm just a bit mind-blown.
Last time I'm ever hanging curtains.
Oh, that's
probably first as well, because I don't really do it. But
I'm not touching them. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So that's it for today's podcast. You'll find us on all the major podcast platforms. The podcasts come out every Wednesday. We'd love to hear from you on our socials, the Gold Diggers Podcast. Tell us about your story so we can find the gold in you.
Easy as pie, lemon, apple or cherry. Loving you is so very sweet, sweet, sweet. How can it be such a piece of cake? And your smile is the icing. Loving you is a poem. Honey, you're my sugar.